Imagine for a moment that the very fears, doubts, and struggles you try hardest to escape are not obstacles but guides. What if the traits you bury, the emotions you suppress, and the desires you deny carry the map to your deepest purpose? Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, called this hidden territory the shadow. And he believed it contains not only the wounds we hide, but also the seeds of our greatest strength. The shadow is the unconscious self we reject. It holds the parts of our personality we call unacceptable, our anger, envy, ambition, or vulnerability. Yet paradoxically, Jung argued that by confronting these hidden elements, we can unlock authenticity and wholeness. He wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." In other words, our strongest reactions to others are often mirrors of what we have not faced within. Think about a time when someone's confidence made you uncomfortable. Was it their arrogance, or your own buried longing to step into the spotlight? Think of moments when jealousy surged unexpectedly. Was it about them or about the suppressed desire you told yourself was impractical or wrong? The shadow is not only darkness, it is potential disguised as discomfort. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your shadow often hides that why. The very things you run from may be the keys to meaning. Anger may point toward injustice you are meant to fight. Fear of failure may hide the desire to create. Even envy can reveal the passions you abandoned too soon. Every hero's journey in mythology reflects this truth. Hercules faced not only monsters but also his own destructive rage. Luke Skywalker had to confront the darkness in himself before becoming a true Jedi. The myth is always the same: you cannot become whole until you face what you fear within. But why is the shadow so powerful? Because it is unconscious. Jung explained that the more we suppress something, the more control it gains. It is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push, the more violently it resurfaces. The shadow rules most strongly when it is denied. He reminded us, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. The more you integrate your own hidden traits, the less you need to project them onto others. The world stops being a mirror of your denial and becomes a canvas for your growth. So how do we begin this work? The first step is awareness. Pay attention to the emotions that feel out of proportion, the irritation, the shame, the sudden jealousy. These are not random flaws but signals pointing toward the shadow. The second step is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean indulging every impulse, but acknowledging that these parts of you exist for a reason. They are not failures of character but fragments of self waiting to be understood. As Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The journey is not easy. It demands honesty, courage, and a willingness to step into what you have avoided, but the reward is profound. To bring the shadow into light is to stop living in fragments and to begin living as a whole person. So ask yourself, what part of me have I been running from? What does my anger, my fear, my envy, or my desire want to teach me? And am I willing to listen instead of hide? Because when you stop treating your shadow as an enemy, it becomes your guide. And in that moment, the path toward authenticity begins. One of the most powerful ways the shadow reveals itself is through projection. Projection is the unconscious act of seeing in others what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The traits we deny within become the ones we criticize most harshly in the world around us. Carl Jung warned, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When you feel strong irritation, envy, or judgment, it often says more about your own inner world than about the person in front of you. The shadow does not disappear when we deny it, it leaks out through the way we see and treat others. Think of a time you labeled someone arrogant. Was it truly arrogance, or was it their confidence shining a light on the confidence you have not allowed yourself? Think of when you judged someone for being selfish. Was it selfishness, or was it your own buried longing to set boundaries and put yourself first? Projection is the mirror through which the unconscious tries to show us what we have left behind. Nietzsche once wrote, "Distrust all in whom the impulse to punish is powerful." The impulse to punish is often the shadow at work. We condemn most fiercely in others what we secretly wrestle with inside ourselves. The anger feels righteous, but it is also a disguise. Projection also explains why people repeat destructive patterns in relationships. We unconsciously seek partners, friends, or even enemies who embody the traits we have denied. This is not coincidence. It is the psyche's way of forcing us to face what we would rather ignore. You can run from your shadow, but you will meet it again and again in the people around you. Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you do not recognize projection, you believe you are simply unlucky in relationships or cursed by circumstances. But in truth, it is your own unacknowledged patterns shaping your experiences. Fate is often the shadow wearing a mask. So how do we work with projection instead of being ruled by it? The first step is to pause when emotions flare. Before condemning someone else, ask, what part of me does this touch? The stronger the reaction, the more likely it reflects something unresolved within. The second step is to reclaim the trait. If arrogance triggers you, perhaps it is your own disowned confidence asking to return. If selfishness stings, maybe it is your neglected need for self-care. Reclaiming does not mean indulging every impulse, but acknowledging that these traits have value when integrated consciously. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to provoke you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." Your reactions are not random, they are invitations to see yourself more clearly. Every trigger is a teacher, every irritation a doorway into deeper self-knowledge. But this requires humility. It is easier to blame the world than to face the parts of ourselves we dislike. Projection lets us avoid responsibility by placing our shadow outside. Yet growth demands we pull it back in, claiming what is ours to own. Jung believed that integration of the shadow brings freedom. When you recognize projection, you stop living as a victim of external forces. You realize the people around you are not enemies but mirrors. And once you see the mirror clearly, you can finally step out of the loop of unconscious reaction. So the next time you find yourself judging, resenting, or condemning, pause. Ask not only, what is wrong with them, but also, what is unresolved in me? That question, repeated honestly, can change the way you see both yourself and the world. Because in the end, projection is not about others. It is the shadow's way of asking to be seen. And when you finally look into the mirror without turning away, you begin the work of wholeness. Human beings are not built for perfection but for paradox. Inside each of us lives both courage and fear, compassion and resentment, ambition and hesitation. We often try to resolve this by choosing one side and rejecting the other, but Carl Jung believed that true growth comes from embracing the tension of opposites. Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. To live fully is not to banish darkness, but to hold both darkness and light without shame. Your anger may stand beside your kindness, your doubt beside your faith, your weakness beside your strength. It is in the coexistence, not the exclusion, that wholeness is born." Think about how often society pressures us into extremes. You are told to be confident but not arrogant, strong but never vulnerable. successful but never selfish. These contradictions create impossible standards, forcing you to exile the traits that don't fit the narrative. But the exiled parts do not disappear. They form the shadow waiting to be acknowledged. Nietzsche once said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." Chaos is the mixture of contradictions inside you, the clash of impulses that make you human. It is not something to fear but something to harness. Without contradiction, there is no creativity, no transformation, no star to be born. The problem arises when we deny one side completely. If you deny your anger, it returns as passive aggression. If you deny your ambition, it returns as envy. If you deny your vulnerability, it returns as isolation. Repression does not erase contradiction. It magnifies it in distorted forms. Jung often spoke of the union of opposites as the essence of individuation. He saw the psyche as a dialogue between conflicting forces, each carrying truth, each demanding recognition. To silence one voice entirely is to live in half-light, cut off from the full range of who you are. Philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote, "Man is neither angel nor beast, and the misfortune is that he who would act the angel acts the beast." The pursuit of purity, of being only light, only good, often drives us deeper into our denied darkness. But when you admit both, when you allow contradiction, you begin to act from a place of balance rather than denial. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You may long to be compassionate, yet secretly resent how much people take from you. You may strive to be brave, yet feel fear gripping your stomach before every important step. You may want success, yet also fear the responsibility that comes with it. These contradictions are not flaws, they are invitations to grow. Jung believed that the true self is found not by choosing sides, but by holding opposites together until a higher resolution emerges. He described this as the transcendent function, the ability of the psyche to create new solutions when we refuse to deny either side of ourselves. When you admit both ambition and fear, you discover courage. When you admit both anger and love, you discover boundaries. When you admit both chaos and order, you discover creativity. So how do you practice embracing contradictions? First, by honesty. Notice the traits you try to hide, the impulses that embarrass you, the emotions you call wrong. Acknowledge them without judgment. Second, by dialogue. Ask yourself what each side is trying to protect or express. Fear may be asking for safety, ambition for growth, anger for justice, vulnerability for connection. Third, by integration. Find ways for both sides to coexist instead of forcing one into exile. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "If someone is able to provoke you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." Contradictions provoke us because they reveal what we have not accepted. The more you resist them, the more they control you. The more you accept them, the more they become part of your strength. Wholeness is not a life without contradictions. It is a life where contradictions are no longer enemies. You stop demanding perfection from yourself and begin embracing humanity. And in that embrace, you discover a deeper freedom, the freedom to be complete, not flawless. So remember this. Your contradictions are not mistakes, they are mirrors. They show you where growth is waiting, where balance is needed, where authenticity begins. And when you dare to hold both sides without fear, you step into the rarest kind of power, the power of wholeness. Every culture tells stories about heroes who endure hardship before transformation. In myths, religion, and literature, awakening never comes through comfort. It comes through trial. The same is true in our own lives. Growth demands pain, not because suffering is noble, but because discomfort forces us to confront what we would otherwise avoid. Carl Jung wrote, There is no coming to consciousness without pain. To awaken is to disturb the old order, to dismantle illusions, and to step into uncertainty. The ego resists this because it wants stability. But the deeper self thrives on growth, and growth is always uncomfortable. Think about your most meaningful changes. Did they happen during calm seasons or during times of loss, rejection, or crisis? Often it is in the breaking that we discover the truth. Pain strips away pretense and leaves us face to face with what matters. Nietzsche once said, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." Suffering alone can crush us, but suffering seen through the lens of meaning transforms us. The pain of failure can become the foundation of resilience. The pain of rejection can become the seed of authenticity. The pain of loss can deepen compassion. Yet most people spend their lives running from discomfort. They chase security, predictability, and ease. But comfort, while pleasant, does not teach. It lulls us into stagnation. Only when life shakes us, when we are rejected, betrayed, or humbled, do we begin to ask the questions that lead to awakening. Jung believed that pain often signals the shadow calling for attention. What hurts us most points directly to the parts of ourselves we have neglected. The ache of loneliness reveals the need for self-acceptance. The sting of jealousy reveals suppressed desire. The fear of failure reveals the buried longing to create. Pain is not random, it is a message. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The very obstacle you dread may be the path to your freedom. By resisting pain, you resist growth. By accepting it, you transform it. This does not mean glorifying suffering or seeking it out. It means refusing to waste it when it arrives. Instead of numbing, denying, or distracting yourself, lean into the discomfort long enough to hear what it is teaching. Ask, what illusion is this pain shattering? What truth is it demanding I see? What part of myself is it calling me to reclaim? The process is never easy. The ego fights to hold on to old certainties. The shadow resists being seen. But every time you choose to face pain honestly, you reclaim power that once belonged to fear. Consider the moments when you avoided pain at all costs. The conversation you never had, the risk you never took, the truth you never admitted. Did avoidance make you free, or did it deepen the prison? Avoidance may protect you temporarily, but it also prevents transformation. Jung taught that wholeness comes only through integration, and integration often hurts. It hurts to admit our flaws, to face our contradictions, to acknowledge our fears. But pain is the price of authenticity, and authenticity is the path to freedom. So when discomfort comes, do not see it as punishment. See it as initiation. It is the psyche pushing you beyond your old limits, asking you to grow into someone new. The wound is not the end of your story, it is the doorway to your becoming. Remember this. Comfort may keep you safe, but pain will set you free. And every time you choose to face discomfort rather than run from it, you move closer to the wholeness that has been waiting within you all along. The deepest longing of the human soul is not perfection, but wholeness. We are not here to erase our flaws or silence our doubts. We are here to integrate them, to weave light and shadow into a single life that feels authentic and alive. Carl Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. To live fully is to accept contradiction. You are both strong and fragile, wise and foolish, brave and fearful. When you stop exiling one half of yourself, you begin to experience freedom." Nietzsche once said, "Become who you are." It is not a call to invent a new self, but to uncover the one buried beneath conditioning, fear, and avoidance. Every step toward authenticity requires peeling back the layers of performance until only truth remains. Think about how much energy we waste pretending. Pretending to be confident when we are uncertain. Pretending to be content when we are restless. Pretending to be agreeable when we are quietly angry. Each act of pretending may win approval, but it costs authenticity. And without authenticity, even success feels hollow. Freedom is not the absence of judgment. It is the refusal to let judgment decide your worth. Criticism will come, misunderstanding will follow, but when you are whole, you no longer crumble under the weight of opinion. You know who you are even if others do not. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When your thoughts are divided, half of you striving, half of you hiding, you live in quiet conflict. But when your thoughts are united, when you accept every part of yourself, you find peace that no circumstance can touch. Wholeness also changes how you see others. When you integrate your own shadow, you stop projecting it onto the people around you. You become less judgmental, less reactive, more compassionate. You see that everyone is also carrying contradictions, also trying to reconcile their light and dark. And in that recognition, relationships deepen, because authenticity meets authenticity. Jung believed that individuation, the journey to becoming whole, is the task of a lifetime. It is not finished in a single breakthrough or one season of growth. It unfolds across years, in moments of courage, in choices to face discomfort rather than run, in daily acts of honesty with yourself. The reward is not perfection but freedom, the freedom to live as you are. So what does wholeness look like in practice? It looks like speaking truth without needing everyone to agree. It looks like admitting fear without letting it stop you. It looks like embracing pain as part of your journey, not as evidence of failure. It looks like resting without guilt, working without desperation, and loving without pretending. Freedom is not something you wait for, it is something you claim. It begins when you stop asking for permission to be yourself. It deepens when you stop abandoning yourself for approval. It becomes unshakable when you integrate every part of you, light and shadow, wound and wisdom, chaos and clarity. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege is available to you now, not after you fix yourself, not after the world approves, not after the fear is gone. It begins the moment you accept that you are already whole, even with your contradictions. So remember this. Your task is not to erase the darkness, but to bring it into light. Not to chase perfection, but to embrace authenticity. Not to live without pain, but to find meaning through it. And in doing so, you will discover the rarest freedom, the freedom of a life lived as your truest self.